Just at the crossing where Crenshaw Boulevard meets Slauson Avenue in Los Angeles exists one of the few remaining important African American cultural locations in the city. It is the intersection ushering into several middle-class Black communities. As well, it serves as critical corridors housing Black businesses from eateries to art galleries, affordable and mixed housing, and everything in between. Annual parades and festivals have passed through these parts, including the once famous Sunday night cruising on Crenshaw. But for years, that reality has dwindled in the crushing economic takeover known as gentrification. With the coming LAX Crenshaw Metro rail line running through this popular district, the decreasing part of the area that is still Black owned and operated is now under a serious battle to survive. As the community grieved the untimely loss of rapper activist Nipsey Hussle, whose The Marathon store is on Slauson just west of Crenshaw Boulevard, a community center serving the African American demographic for free for almost 2 decades and located not far from the Marathon, fell under siege. The AFIBA Center discovered that it sat in the crosshairs of a project earmarking the grave changes in the community. That project is called Destination Crenshaw. After the AFIBA Center's founder, Jabari Jumane, and several community organizations in the area expressed grave concerns about Destination Crenshaw and its proposal to build on the center's grounds, the AFIBA Center was served a notice of eviction in 2019. For 2 years, the AFIBA Center has been battling the city, which has now turned into a legal fisticuff. Arc Republic spoke with Inspector Jumane, a 35-year veteran on the LA City Fire Department, and Mr. Lynn Moses, a community activist who has been following the reconfiguration of Crenshaw and Slauson corridors. Now here's their side of the story of saving the AFIBA Center.
Let's embark on the Arc Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times to free the voices and minds. Reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
So I want to start this in giving a little bit of context from our end as Arc Republic. If you have been a member or a follower of Arc Republic, you would know that in 2019, we did a major collaborative project covering gentrification across the United States. One of the cities we investigated was Los Angeles. My assignment was the AFIBA Center. One of my assignments was the AFIBA Center. And in speaking to Mr. Jumane, other community members, and even representatives of the city council, I discovered that the AFIBA Center was in a fight for its life. Unfortunately, the story did not make it to our gentrification series, but that was because it was so big. 2 years later, and investigating, I thought that it would be apropos to actually speak to the man behind the fight to keep AFIBA Center alive, to hear his side of the story and the community side of the story. So thank you again for coming on the show and speaking with me, Mr. Jumane and Mr. Moses. So let's get down to it. Okay. So can you please, first, let's give a quick and dirty details about the current fight that you're in regarding the AFIBA Center. And then we'll get more into the specifics of the matter.
You're speaking to me.
Yes, Mr. Jumane.
Okay. We, as you know, we have been involved in this fight to save our very cultural lives here in Los Angeles, where opposing forces seek to eradicate us from the cultural landscape here in Los Angeles and South LA. The AFIBA Center, AFIBA is a Yoruba word, which means by the sea. It's also an acronym for the African Firefighters in Benevolent Association. This is now our 29th year in existence. However, this is our 21st year in this location as the AFIBA Center in South LA. Our goal is to service our community and help with cultural education, economic education, economic empowerment education. Relationship workshops is what we provide. We provide programs for youth programs for reentry folk who are coming back into our society. Wherever our people are, we believe we should be with our programming and our hearts. And that's where I'm pleased to say we have been at this center over 20 years. We recently, and speaking out against some gentrifying elements in the community, and in particular, speaking out regarding some of the issues related to Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson's Destination Crenshaw program, and I should say, exercising our First Amendment right to free speech on some of these issues that we found problematic with Destination Crenshaw. We received an eviction notice out of a building which is owned by the city of LA, which we were under license to be in and have been in since 2000. This was totally a retaliatory effort. And it's sort of mocking that there would be an anti-racist motion put forth by one of the councilmen, Marquise Harris Dawson, with two other Black councilmen in the city of LA, yet they are repetitively and vehemently coming aggressively to erase us from the cultural landscape. You can't be anti-racist and then point your arrows, slings, and armament to destroy an independent voice which we represent in South Los Angeles. So we were given.
So, Mr. Jumani, let me just. So right now, so we know that AFIBA Center was served an eviction notice. Right now, where are you with that legal issue?
We are, as it exists right now, we have been locked out by Marquise Harris Dawson out of the AFIBA Center, and we have served him paperwork, a complaint from the federal court. We are in federal court seeking to have this matter adjudicated. We, as of last week, they had to respond to the complaint. And from our legal team, we heard that they did respond, and we have until next week to respond as well, to see if we will move forward and allow a jury to hear all of the information that we have and our claim against the city and Marquise Harris Dawson.
Let's do a very quick timeline. So for those of you who are not familiar, in Los Angeles, there is a project that was launched by Marquise Harris Dawson, who currently is a council member for, what's the district?
The 8th district.
For the 8th district in Los Angeles, launched a project called Destination Crenshaw when, or shortly after, or not even shortly after, but after construction was put into play in order to build the Crenshaw LAX Metro line, correct?
Correct.
And the LAX Metro line runs from the airport all the way through Inglewood and down Slauson in some ways and on Crenshaw. The point of contention of the community where the Metro line runs approximately Slauson and Crenshaw area in the Hyde Park area is that the Metro Rail runs above ground as opposed to underground, like the other portions of the city. One of the answers or responses that elected officials did was, or Marquise Harris Dawson did, was to launch this project called Destination Crenshaw. And from what we understand, it is supposed to be a project initially in order to bolster more business or support to the Black businesses along this line. This is what was initially promoted. Right. Am I wrong?
That's what they say.
Yeah,
but reality is something else.
So that's what they said. However, so I'm breaking it down so it could forever be broke right up in here. So what you're saying, Mr. Jumani, is that AFIBA Center and its supporters voiced opposition against Destination Crenshaw. Correct?
What happened? And if I can just add in something where
yes, no, please do.
where what I always heard Destination Crenshaw advertised as was an open air museum, where the train, Crenshaw line is underground. It's subterranean till it, let's say, this point traveling south. When it gets to 48th Street, it comes and it's at grade where everybody can see it, splitting Crenshaw in half for 1.3 miles. That 1.3 miles where the train is running, there would
1.3 or 1.8? It's 1.3.
1.3. 1.3 between 48th Street and 60th Street, approximately. And so they're saying that the goal was to have Black artwork up along that thoroughfare so that people who come through there will see the Black aesthetic, and that in the event of gentrification, that Black culture and identity will not be erased from the community. So what a number of us did openly, repetitively throughout 2019 season, between 2018 and 2019, was voice our concerns on three levels. We first said, since it was talked about that it would bolster the economy of the Crenshaw businesses, we wanted to know what was the economic component that was built into Destination Crenshaw that we would benefit from. Secondly, we wanted to have more input from people of that Hyde Park area that was affected with the train being run at grade, splitting Crenshaw in two. We wanted to know, where can we be part of the steering committee that has a voice with how we will be impacted by Destination Crenshaw. And third, we wanted to, we contested and spoke of the adverse impact on the AFIBA Center itself, because what was proposed as part of Destination Crenshaw was that a 12-story tower be placed in the parking lot at the AFIBA Center and a pocket park. So if you can imagine 12 stories of tower being placed there, which essentially took the parking spaces that the public utilizes to come to programs at this center, took them from 23 parking spaces to approximately 10. So we just—
So let me kind of back up in terms of understanding this timeline. 2018, you begin to vocalize your concerns and opposition, or definitely concerns about what Destination Crenshaw, what would be its real impact, right? As well. And I did speak with Antoine Roberts in 2019. I don't know if he's still with Councilman Marquise Dawson, but also there was, from what I understand, there was a complaint by local businesses that the construction was actually hurting the Black businesses that were there because the streets were blocked off. Correct. So is this part of the that were there, because
that were there. That's the main idea we need to come back to, businesses that were there.
Right. And so from what I was told is that Destination Crenshaw was also supposed to kind of remedy that, the businesses, and that they were providing some type of funding for businesses to stay afloat. Mr. Roberts told me that money was given to, what's the name of that restaurant?
Doolin.
That's very Doolin. It was given to Doolin's restaurant. That was the only business that was cited, and that they couldn't really help the other Black businesses because their books were not in order.
They set up a business interruption fund, hundreds of millions of dollars. But they knew, just like what's called Prop HHH out here, which is supposed to be for homeless housing, they set it up for failure to begin with. The homeless housing, $1.2 billion, they could only do ground up construction. And these clowns are out here building $600,000 to $700,000 per unit, not per building, per unit. Some of them are 400 square feet. Well, the same thing. Yeah, that's right. The same thing with Destination Crenshaw. The Metro and the Business Interruption Fund. They built all these parameters into it, not that they're mom and pop and don't have the books and the taxes and all the things, all the documentation into it. So they hardly any of them ever got any money.
Right.
The result, the businesses that were there, they are not there anymore. Mm-hmm. The Metro, see, they plan this way in advance. The Metro is designed to eliminate the Black businesses from Crenshaw Boulevard. Destination Crenshaw, is designed to replace the Black businesses with white corporate entities along Crenshaw, supported by the multi-level real estate that they are building on Crenshaw, totally wiping out the Black community. We should have all been got. So it's all the Metro, Destination Crenshaw, the building that's going on. It's all a gentrification project. And Destination Crenshaw is a gentrification project. Go ahead.
Mr. Moses, I want to connect what you said actually to the AFIBA Center. So if we're talking about businesses being displaced and removed, AFIBA Center falls into, the targets of being removed. So the AFIBA Center is
not just the target, but the hub, the center, Slauson and Crenshaw. That is the key.
Could you please explain, because a lot of people who are listening might not have visited Los Angeles, might have, but do not understand, what does Crenshaw and Slauson represent in terms of this hub that we talk about?
That's where one of the train stations, there's only two stops, Slauson and Crenshaw and Lamert Park. There's only those two stops.
That's where the Black, businesses and the cultural activities pop on those two sections.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
interesting.
So they're tearing up, they've destroyed all these businesses for two stops. It's a train. What benefit do we get? It's designed to take other communities from downtown to the airport. To heck with us. Now, Slauson and Crenshaw, that's where the main hub is. That's where the station is. Okay. You have Dorset Village, 1 block away. Almost 1,000 people Dawson is trying to evict to raise up a 7-story tower of 782 luxury units with pool, spa, swimming pools, saunas, jacuzzis, racquetball, tennis, and basketball courts. Doesn't sound like that. Slauson and Crenshaw, the AFIBA Center.
Hold on, Mr. Moses. I don't want to lose sight. I want to get a little insight with Mr. Jumanic, because he talked about earlier how the AFIBA Center and supporters such as you were vocalizing their concern. And the city, are you saying, Mr. Jumani, came to the AFIBA Center and said that they wanted to build a 12-foot tower?
12-story.
12-story,
120 feet high
tower on the property of the AFIBA Center. And this is just a side note. The AFIBA Center, the property is owned by the city.
That is
correct. The AFIBA Center has a lease to lease.
Yes, as I said, we were licensed to be in there by the city council 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. So that is correct. The tower.
By a white woman.
Yeah.
A white city councilman.
Yeah.
The only one that's lifted a finger out of 3 black, Marquise Dawson,
Bernard Parks, and Mark Ridley Thomas.
None of them have given a penny not a penny in 20 years. And this white woman, this white council person, when it was part of her district, she's the one that saw the need for a Black cultural center in that area with the highest concentration of Black people in all of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
This is the disrespect and the lack of representation the Black community had.
So before we had some tech issues, but we move forward. So thank you for Mr. Jumane and Mr. Moses for being patient with me. So we were talking about this 12-story,
120-foot tower.
120-foot standalone tower. Freestanding tower that was proposed by the city by Marquise Harris Dawson's staff and him to put this in the parking lot of the AFIBA Center, as well as place a pocket park in the AFIBA Center. And this was proposed in what way? How was it brought to you?
In August of 2018, I received a call from a staff member of Marquise Harris Dawson's office wanting to meet with me at the AFIBA Center to discuss aspects of Destination Crenshaw. Of course, I agreed. We met so that we would have full transparency. I had already heard complaints in the community on how members of Hyde Park weren't invited in on the steering committees or advisory committees for this Destination Crenshaw project. So I called members, a couple of people I knew who were interested, who were associated with long-standing community organizations, well-respected long-standing organizations in the Hyde Park area. One of them being HOPE, the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership for Empowerment, and the other one being the Park Mesa Heights Community Council. I invited them to come to this meeting as well. And I also invited another member of the AFIBA organization so that we would have eyes on this. I didn't feel particularly comfortable with them setting up a meeting just to meet with me. That didn't sound right. That didn't sit well with me. So upon inviting these people into the meeting, that's when they showed I wouldn't say a slide presentation, but on their laptops, they showed renderings of this tower, this 12-story, not 12-foot, 12-story tower. And
what would it have on the tower? What would be on the tower?
For those who didn't know, for those who don't know where they are in that part of South LA, it would say Crenshaw. For the people who don't realize standing on Crenshaw that they're on Crenshaw, you've got 120-foot, 12-story tower to remind you of where you are, Crenshaw.
The main purpose, I think, they relayed to me on occasion was they wanted it to be able to be seen from the air.
Like Hollywood, like the Hollywood sign.
This is their plans. They want that place to be a tourist attraction. That's what they're saying. It's almost the director said it's going to look almost Disneylandish in the art in some places. This has nothing to do with Black culture. And that's why the attack on the AFIBA Center has to go, because they're the epitome of Black culture. That's why the AFIBA Center is being evicted. You couldn't go to the Jewish community. You can't go to the Asian Koreatown or Chinatown and say, we want that. You have to go, we're going to install our puppets. You can't do that. And you can't do it on Crenshaw at the AFIBA Center either. Mm-hmm. They've expected us to just go away.
And from what I understand, that in this proposal, that there had been quite a few meetings going on in the community. And the late rapper Nipsey Hussle was at some of these meetings talking about Destination Crenshaw. Am I correct on that?
You know, I wasn't privy to any meetings that our dear beloved belated brother Nipsey was in on. I have heard through media accounts via newspaper that the Destination Crenshaw name came from Nipsey Hussle, but I only take that with a grain of salt because that came from Marquise Harris Dawson in his newspaper article. And because it came from him, I have firsthand seen how he has told numerous lies about the AFIBA Center. So I can't say that. I've never been in on any meetings. Nipsey's mother has been to the center for sure. And I've spoken with his brother. I've had the occasion to speak to his brother, but
Black Sam,
yes. So it is interesting, but as Lynn said, you can't go and think if you utter having an attack on the Wiesenthal Center, the wrath that would come down upon you would be something they would not want to deal with. As we saw with the 10th district, when it was proposed to have erect a homeless structure in the district, the Asian community, the Korean community came down with such a wrath against then Councilman Wesson, that was turned around quickly. However, Black people have in many regards been so docile with regard to their leadership that just for you to be Black in color negates the need for you to be Black in content, in substantive content. So Black representatives don't fear any reprisal from their electorate, from their constituents.
Until now.
Go ahead. Much in the way that back in the day, Wilson Goode was able to drop bombs on the move in Philadelphia.
Right, in Philadelphia. And the bones are still being studied. Experimented on at UPenn. So Mr. Moses, you had something to add, sir.
It's a general, I was just talking about Slauson and Crenshaw. Again, Dorset Village, they have to go. 1,000 people, extremely low income. Some that have been there 30 years.
Could you explain Dorset Village and what it is to that community?
Dorset Village is 1 block east of Slauson and Crenshaw, where the train station is going to be set. It's a huge community, almost 1,000 people. Extremely low income, rent control. Here in a city of 60,000 homeless people, Marquise Dawson, is trying to evict them for his billionaire buddy to erect this luxury, evict them all, raise the place to the ground, and build this place. That's one. The AFIBA Center, right on Slauson and Crenshaw. The EDD office,
Employment
1
Development.
block from Slauson and Crenshaw, and this is going to curl your hair. Marquise Dawson, in the highest area of unemployment in the city of Los Angeles, with 60,000 homeless people, 3 to 8 dying on concrete every day. He tries to take that big, beautiful building. The owner and the state were in litigation. He goes behind the state, behind the court, and tries to get the building for himself. Council file number 18-0957. He got $308,000 from the city of LA just for the move to build out his office in that building, and a $20,087.50 a month lease to take the Black community unemployment office. I'm telling you, just Google it. Council.
So my question is that, go ahead, Mr. Jumani.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Moses, did he ever actually move into the building?
That was my question.
Okay.
And so what happened?
What happened to the
money?
Yes.
Yes.
Good question. He used part of it. He went in there and started tearing up, made his side deal directly with the owner, and went in there with part of the 308, started tearing the place up and remodel until the judge got wind of it, put a stop to it in a restraining order. It gets better. Okay, just the morals that it would take to do something like that. The city council gave $15 million to the UCLA Labor Center. They all voted unanimous, and they give, and that's an institution with $10 billion in reserve. What do we have? An unemployment office. They give this guy millions of dollars to take our unemployment office for his own personal office, and they hear about it at every council meeting. It gets better. One block down the street is 5462 Crenshaw Boulevard. He goes back, and the part of the funds he didn't use for the EDD office, the unemployment office, he procures another $541,000, over $500,000 for the build out of another luxury office at 5462 Crenshaw Boulevard. They're building it out right now. The $17,550 per month lease while people are dying in the street.
Okay. Okay. Let me make sense. So so Mr. Moses, there was an unemployment office located approximately on Slauson and Crenshaw intersection.
5401 Crenshaw Boulevard.
So on Crenshaw Boulevard,
Crenshaw on 54th Street.
Sorry, Crenshaw on 54th. Excuse me.
Yeah, north.
Which is how many blocks from Slauson? What is that?
It's approximately three long blocks north.
Okay, so 3 blocks north of Slauson and Crenshaw. The unemployment office. Who closes the office?
It was in litigation between. It was a 20-year lease. The gentleman who owned it built it for the community. It was a 20-year lease. At the end of the 20 years, the contract stated that it was supposed to be turned over to the state for $1. He died 2 years before the lease was over. The lease continued. His stepdaughter, at the end of the 20 years, instead of signing it over, she evicted the state. The state sued and won, and she appealed. But in the middle of the suit, Marquise Dawson goes around the state, goes around the court, and makes a deal directly with the owner, the purported owner.
Using $300-something thousand.
Then he makes his deal. Then he goes to the city council. And if anybody knows anything about the Los Angeles sleazy council, they do what's called vote trading or vote swaps. All votes are yes votes. It doesn't matter how devastating, how horrible the deal is for the public. If a councilman puts forth a motion, he will get a unanimous yes vote. That way, all their trash gets voted on, voted yes on, including $20,087 a month. That's over $1 million in 5 years. Lease to take our unemployment office that was serving over 5,000 residents a month. Over the 4 years that was closed, that's 260,000 people that would have been serviced. It doesn't matter how bad it is for the community. If it gets to the city council, it will be voted yes on. This is the level of corruption in Los Angeles.
So are you saying, okay, you know what, that is a conversation we definitely are going to have more of. I want to go back to the AFIBA Center. This is the center of focus. I want to keep that.
Right.
As I said in the beginning,
all together.
No, that's what I was. So that's what I was saying in the beginning. Yeah. When I started researching the AFIBA Center and I saw all the tentacles and the nooks and the crannies and the dark alleys and the back shots connected to the AFIBA Center, this was much bigger than that. It told a story, and the AFIBA Center is, at this core.
Right in the middle.
So Mr. Moses, we will be having more conversations, God willing, and the creek doesn't rise. But let's get back to this AFIBA Center. So Mr. Jumani, the AFIBA, yourself, supporters of the AFIBA Center, after you were presented this proposal, you rejected it. And how long after you rejected it or expressed concern, I don't want to put words in your mouth, expressed concern about what this would be if you have a 12-story tower in a pocket park? I don't know how that's going to cure homelessness in Los Angeles. How long after that were you served an eviction notice?
We, if I go back to the August 2018 date of the meeting, we originally had that meeting, and the community members that I brought into the meeting voiced such intensity and opposition and audacity to people making plans in this community without calling the community in on this, that the city representatives who were there decided to call another meeting. They decided to call another meeting downtown this time, where it cost
their territory.
Correct. Where it costs $17 a car to park. That will limit outside intervention. And this meeting was called specifically for me. And at that meeting, they brought out once again their overhead views and schematics of what this would look like. And, I basically, I guess I didn't give them the response that they wanted. As you said appropriately, I voiced concern that 10 spaces would be left as opposed to the 23 that were there. Where are community people supposed to come and park while they're dealing with events that are, or enjoying events that are at the center? So to answer your question, we had from August of 2018, we had another throughout 2019 up until that year for 1 year. It took them, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 5 more meetings that I can think of right offhand, where those 3 issues were continually brought up by community members. 1, where's the economic component we will benefit from? 2, we need more community involvement where we are impacted here in Hyde Park. And 3, we are concerned over the adverse impact on the AFIBA Center. And up until after those 5 meetings, they took the position and gave us the notice, shortly after those series of meetings, which took us up until August of the next year. So that's when we received the notice of eviction.
So August 2019 is when you received the notice of eviction.
Absolutely. 2019, ironically, when the rest of the culturally conscious Black world was engaged in in a commemoration of the year of the return.
What's the year of the return?
The 1619 project, which was pushed forth as the date in which kidnapped Africans were forcibly brought to these shores of North America. That 1619 period till now, 2019, is when we were now acknowledging, when this travesty jumped off. So it's interesting that this travesty in the Black community, under the guise of someone who looks to be someone who would be aligning themselves with you, but like they say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and they say, all that's Black in color is not Black in content. So he proves that time and time again.
Thank you for tuning in to this very special Ark Republic News podcast, Saving the AFIBA Center Part 1. Part 2 will be on Ark Republic's YouTube channel and our website, arkrepublic.com, shortly. If you want to stay abreast on all of our news, world news, local news, important news, and critical information with robust and rich storytelling, please become a member to Ark Republic. It is free and it has benefits.
We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build, let's shine, yeah.